What's happening, hardscapers? This is episode 96 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk to you about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And today's show is once again sponsored by Jobber. This is your last chance. You have less than a week to go apply for their grants at boostbyjobber.com. Apply for them now. I'd love to see a member of our community get one of these and to follow up with you about how you were able to use that money to change your business. So go get it, boostbyjobber.com. And today we're joined by Demi Fortuna. He is the Director of Product Information at Atlantic Water Gardens. And we get into today about installing water features into your hardscape projects. We get into the sales aspect, the installation, everything that you'd want to know about this. So without further ado, here's our episode with Demi. Today, we're joined by Demi Fortuna. He is the Director of Product Information at Atlantic Water Gardens, a company that specializes in water features. And that is what we're going to be talking about today with him. Water features, everything from sales, what the benefits are for your clients, and typical installation, and what Atlantic has available for hardscapers specifically. Demi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Michael.
Demi, let's get started to get to know a little bit more about yourself. What brought you into the industry? What brought you to Atlantic? Can you give our audience a little bit of a background about you?
Sure. Actually, I started back in 1985 after doing hurricane cleanups. The first job that came in the spring after cleaning up after Hurricane Gloria on Long Island was a pond job. And I talked my boss into doing it by betting him my salary that we would make money on it. We didn't, but luckily I got to do all the rest of the landscaping as well. So he never figured that out, which was a good thing. And from there, just by word of mouth, I became the local pond man. And I got into the other side of the business, the manufacturing and equipment side, years later with Atlantic, where I'm the Director of Product Information. But one of the nice things is I've been able to maintain my status as a contractor, and I build and do project management for water features to this day, which is, it's great to be able to keep your hand in and, use the products and really know how to explain them to folks because you've had that firsthand experience.
And that's so huge in this industry, is having somebody that actually talks about what they're doing and, having that firsthand knowledge and experience with water features is a definite bonus. And with water features, I explained to you before we jumped on this call that myself and my business, I'm not installing water features, but am going to start this year. And I'm looking for how, I can approach customers and kind of sell them on a water feature, on the experience of having a water feature. So Demi, I want to ask you what the benefits are for our clients in installing a water feature for them. What would you say to a client is a benefit of having a water feature in their backyard?
Well, I think the first thing that springs to mind, what most people think about with water features, is the aesthetic component of being able to see and hear water in motion. This is missing from many landscapes, which are in many ways static. That is, beautiful plantings and gorgeous hardscaping, but nothing's in motion until you're actually moving it. Whereas water's always glistening in the sun, falling and making ripples that can be illuminated at night to make incredible shadow effects. The sound of water is very soothing. It's considered therapeutic, so much so that many hospitals are putting in sensory gardens that feature water features because of the sound and sight of water being considered a healing property. Interestingly enough, falling water also generates negative ions. So there's a body of thought that says that those negative ions also calm and relax people. I'm not quite sure, how much that is in operation for water features, but most people love the sight and sound of them. There are other benefits as well, though. You've got environmental benefits, besides the obvious ones of cooling an area that's very, very warm, let's say, with water vapor evaporating, it drops temperatures. But you also have places for animals to come drink and birds to visit. So we have a lot of people who are very interested in that sort of thing. A buddy of mine in Arizona has pictures of bobcats and deer visiting his water feature, which he constructed well back from the house so that he could actually offer these amenities to his desert visitors. And then, of course, water in of itself is that component that's often missing in our Western gardens that you find in Eastern gardens, in Far Eastern gardens, Chinese gardens, Japanese gardens. Always have that component of water. It's considered an essential of the four elements. You want to make sure that water is one of them. So there's all that. And then there's the fact that water is easy to install and is a remarkable return on a relatively simple investment because people value a water feature quite highly. So that's a wonderful thing for our contractors. They can put together a relatively simple water feature that's easy to install. And then a charge basically for their artistry and not just the product that's going in. You don't charge by the square foot, for example, for water features. It's your artistry. So you can basically play, be creative, and get rewarded for it.
I love those points that you brought up. Some of them I'd never heard before. And also, I'm all about, with this podcast, getting these features, these services, these add-ons that we can, as hardscapers, add on to our job that is not only going to increase our bottom line, but is also going to increase the customer experience and the client experience, the value that we can deliver our clients. And water features fit so perfectly into a hardscape. But for you, Demi, where do you see a water feature fitting into a hardscape, a patio, a backyard, or outdoor living space? Where do you specifically see, and maybe you can reference specific products that Atlantic has that we can kind of imagine this? I know this is a podcast, it's not visual, but maybe we can kind of imagine where we can start to insert these different water features in an outdoor space.
Beautifully said, Michael. Yeah, these are real enhancements to these outdoor spaces. What we've done to make it sort of easy to envision the types of water features you can easily install in a hardscape is split them into those that go into a horizontal surface like a patio and those that go onto a wall. And we just call the first fountains and the second formal spillways. And that's an arbitrary distinction, but it allows us to create a system that has, for example, for fountains, a buried component, usually a fountain basin, although we have systems that support up to 7 tons. So a simple basin may be perfect for a single basalt column or an overflowing boulder or a beautiful tall vase that's illuminated from inside and water running down its sides. And that can be completely hidden in a patio where you have a circle in the patio that's a little bit of gravel or even porous pavers. So these work extremely well with porous pavers. And of course, there's the tie-in to rain harvesting for those folks that are interested in that. And all of these features are set up as a system so that you would choose your own decorative topper of any type, because where we started was in creating the infrastructure that allowed a contractor to build a water feature out of just about anything that you could pour water through or on or over or under. And we would set up the infrastructure for them with a kit that would allow them to plumb it. We've since gone into decorative toppers as well because we've been requested to. And we have basalt columns. We have beautiful, an entire suite of copper products that are quite frankly magnificent. They're just beautiful, solid copper bowls and that sort of thing. Just lovely. And other toppers as well. But they all fit on the same basis and they're all very, very easy to install. Those are our fountain products. And they would go into, let's say, a fire pit during the summertime. You'd pull out the 30-inch fire pit insert, you drop in a 30-inch basin and put a bubbling boulder in place to cool the area during the summer when maybe you don't want to use a fire. Or drop down a 46-inch diameter basin into a patio and put triple basalt columns up that have lights at the top so that the water bubbling out the top looks like liquid torches. And those colors can be adjusted by the homeowner via a phone application. Or perhaps they want to go a little bigger and underneath a driveway or a large space in their backyard where they don't want to see anything on the surface except the water feature. You can hide an EcoBlocks reservoir underneath. EcoBlocks are water matrix blocks designed to hold and support tremendous weight while being 96% void space. So basically, they look like closed milk crates. You would dig a hole, line it with liner, put your eco blocks inside, cover it back up again, and then you could set a 4-ton boulder on top and have that as a water feature. So all of those options are available in fountains. That gives the hardscaper a lot of products to play with for horizontal surfaces. For walls, that's where we've been concentrating lately, because we find that this is a very easy place to enhance a little corner that's just a bare wall. Let's say it's a little retaining wall towards the back of a hardscape where there might be a little hill behind. Instead of trying to create a stream that looks natural and then goes over a hardscape wall and falls into a natural stream below, that transition is difficult. We find that folks are looking towards formal spillways these days, where you might take the cap off that wall, set a color falls or a spillway that's exactly the width of a block, width and height of a block. So you might pull out with a 4x8x12 block, which is a very common size. You might pull out 2 of them and drop a 24-inch spillway, and then just push a basin up in front of that wall and cover that with, say, the same or contrasting stone in front. So you have a complete water feature. The only technical challenge, if you might call it that, is to get a pipe from the front basin to the back of the spillway itself. And it's usually a half-day job. So people have really responded extremely well to these wall features, which we call formal spillway features. And we have a large number of products to support that type of architecture. Spouts with all different configurations, diamond shapes, round, oval, square, to complement tile work that might be set on a herringbone or diagonal, that sort of thing. We have copper and stainless steel spillways. We have color falls, which are a lucite box that is hidden in the rockwork, and all you see is the water coming out. And that's illuminated from within the color falls. So the water carries the light down into the basin below, an effect we use quite often from either below or above, because that illuminated water at night is just stunning. And we have the copper bowls that I mentioned in all sorts of different sizes and configurations, from small spillway bowls up to large 36-inch diameter overflowing basins. So there's an awful lot of choice available as well. So the contractor would basically decide whether he wanted to offer something in a patio or horizontal surface or on a wall. And the time that we like to set up for these installs is about a half a day. We figure if we can give the contractor a kit that has everything needed except the stone, and they can install it in a half a day, they can add that easily to their portfolio, not just as a really good opportunity to make additional money, but also to add to the portfolio itself. Water shows better than many other features. A patio, as good as a patio gets, is a patio. But when people see these water features, and they're often very different from anything they've seen before, this is something they really respond to. So the picture in the portfolio or on the website, that goes a long way towards garnering new business as well.
I want to take a break from today's episode to thank our sponsor, Jobber, and I'm excited to share Boost by Jobber, Jobber's new $100,000 grant program, which is built to help launch, grow, and strengthen small home service businesses. Wherever you are in your business journey, you are invited to apply for grants ranging from $1,000 to $20,000, and in August 2021, Jobber will be announcing 20 recipients. They'll be following along with your story, how the funding has impacted your business, and whether you're seeking new equipment, marketing dollars, launching a new service. You are invited to apply. The application only has 2 questions and an optional video, and I urge you to do that optional video. And you can go to boostbyjobber.com to learn more about this application. And if you're listening to this after May 5th, I still encourage you to go check out Jobber software. Jobber builds award-winning job tracking and customer management software for home service businesses. Now back to our episode. Thinking about the installation myself with these, and also for anybody listening that maybe has some hesitation getting into installing these water features, when it comes to the fountains and you have that fountain basin, are we just digging a hole? Should we prepare a base underneath that, much like we would for a patio? And also, can we sink that, say, basin into a patio area and compact gravel around that basin? Is it going to be able to withstand that?
As a matter of fact, it will. We design our basins, the individual basins that we have. There's a 24-inch square, a 32-inch diameter round basin, and a 46-inch diameter larger round basin. These are designed to support weight. So they can go underneath the patio, and then the patio itself, basically just prepare the ground, dig down. It's only about 14 inches below the bottom surface of your patio. They're about 14 inches high, and you want the patio to rest on top of the lip all the way around. In most cases, there's a couple different ways to build them. You can go right across the surface with paving stones and just leave the spacing set up for permeable paver so water will pass straight through. That's an interesting look because it's sort of magical. And the basin itself will support the distributed load without any trouble. Or you can use these EcoBlocks reservoirs, which just support literally vehicle traffic, if you wish, underneath the proper subgrade. So there's no problem with the preparation. You dig down, you install your basin, 14 to 18 inches deep typically. But for those folks who want to use rainwater harvesting, they may want to set up, for example, a double or triple EcoBlocks basin where they have different layers of EcoBlocks to increase carrying or storage capacity of the rainwater harvesting system. These things all work very well together. The wall work, of course, is very similar, but all you're doing basically is adding a basin out in front that can be either set in the ground or at grade, so that the basin itself is up as a sitting wall, and that's very easy also. There's no additional preparation necessary. This is in stark contrast to, say, the way we used to install. For example, I'm going to give you a concrete example because we've seen this in Oklahoma. One of our contractors, a buddy of mine, installed a 36-inch granite sphere. Now, in the past, if we had to install something that weighed that much, that's about 2,000 pounds, we'd have to build a concrete base. We'd have to set up the plumbing to make this thing overflow. This was a bubbling sphere. The water came out the top. It would have to be set up perfectly so that the plumbing lined up. And we'd have to wait a while so that the concrete base would be able to support the weight. Even if we use steel, the basin around this would typically be concrete, and we'd have to wait. So it became not just a multi-day installation, but a multi-week installation because of the need to cure concrete. With the EcoBlocks I've been mentioning, that became a half-day job. Basically, the contractor dug down about 18 inches total so that he could be a little below grade because he wanted to cover up the EcoBlocks with some pebbles around the 36-inch diameter stone. He installed a liner on top of underlayment that protected it with another layer of underlayment on top of the liner to protect the liner from both inside and the outside. And then he put in his EcoBlocks. He set a ring, which we call the Eco Rise, that distributes the weight down on top of the EcoBlocks. And he set his 36-inch diameter granite sphere, 2,000 pounds of it, right on top. No problem. And he was able, because the Eco Rise riser, that round ring that the granite sphere was sitting on, accepts an 1.5-inch pipe. He was able to put the pipe through the Eco Riser up into his sphere and move his sphere and adjust it with it running. And he did that in a morning. The finished work was to backfill around the EcoBlocks and he used Mexican beach pebbles on top around this beautiful white granite sphere. And it was done in a day. Now, this is in stark contrast to what we used to do as masons to set up a 2,000 or 3,000 pound stone in place. And it's basically foolproof because everything, all the peripherals are housed in a pump vault, a small, I don't know what to call it, a small enclosure for the pump that goes alongside the EcoBlocks, where you've got a large lid. You open the lid and the pump is there, and autofill is right there in the EcoBlocks. An ionizer to keep everything completely free of algae is right there. Everything serviced from one spot. It's inaccessible to the public. It's either under pebbles or it's bolted down. We have pump vaults that can be secured. And he had a working water feature in a day. So this is the kind of thing that makes hardscape contractors sit up and take notice.
It only makes the project look so much better, and like you said, it doesn't take a significant amount of time to be able to do that and to add that value to our customers with these water features. Now, continuing on with these installations, you brought up a lot of really interesting ideas, and just taking a look at photos online just shows how creative you can be with these water features. Now, when it comes to, say, the copper fountain bowls or the spillways or the basalt columns, is there anything that we need to know about keeping them in place in terms of fastening them or anything like that? Or is the weight of the water, the weight of the unit, is that going to keep it in place for the most part?
That's an excellent question. I'm going to give you another. For instance, we were asked to do a tall basalt column installation, 3 basalt columns, the tallest of which was about 5 feet tall, 1 4 foot tall, 1 3 foot tall, in a kindergarten courtyard. And we were concerned that rough play or an inadvertent shove might topple an a basalt columns. We weren't concerned about the weight. So these systems are extremely adaptable. What we did there was we took a ring of aluminum flashing around the eco blocks, and we poured, we put a piece of landscape fabric on top of the eco blocks themselves so the concrete wouldn't fall through. So when we installed the basalt columns on top of the landscape fabric, we put this ring of flashing around, and we poured cement around the base and worked it up a few inches higher than the ring, which was only 4 inches of flashing. So we had about an 8-inch ring of cement. And we use a very strong Portland mix with fiber reinforcement, so we don't have to worry about it cracking. And we left places for lights in that cement so that we could just drop a light in with a little piece of conduit so we could just run the cords through. And that allowed us to make a completely secure single piece, a monolith out of these 3 basalt columns. You can do this. There's a lot of ways to adapt these situations if you have to worry about stability. But frankly, unless you're talking about something that is 5 feet tall, where there's some leverage at the top where you might topple these down, the something like the copper bowls, the 36-inch copper bowl, when full, weighs close to 1,000 pounds. It's not going anywhere. Most of these units are in the substrate or in the wall in a way that they can't be messed with. So they're extremely good for commercial applications as well as homeowner applications, because the opportunity for vandalism or damage just isn't there. All of your peripherals are buried. Your bowl on top, perhaps somebody might come along with a Sawzall and try and remove that, but the rest of the spillways, the color falls, the spouts, they all mount in the wall itself. So there's no way for them to be damaged. And the pump is down in the ground. Nobody even knows where it is. So there's no opportunity for that to be messed with. And the nice thing about these features, and we hadn't really touched on it, is they are basically extremely low maintenance because the basins can be filtered. The color falls basins, for example, or formal spillways basins or hardscape basins are double filtered so that nothing can get in to mess with the pump. It never clogs. If you have hard water, you have to keep an eye on whether or not lime scale will build up, but that's about the only thing you have to worry about. You've got an autofill down in there, so it keeps the feature topped off automatically with an ionizer set up so that you have to replace the electrodes every couple of years. You put a small amount of copper into the water, and we're talking about parts per million, and not even a whole part per million. Complete algae control is assured at a third of a part per million in the water. These things can go a couple years before the electrodes are replaced. They're inexpensive, and they completely control algae on all the surfaces and the water. So these are basically maintenance free, as well as sturdy, dependable, and pretty much vandal proof.
That's incredible. And what about in the wintertime? Do we need to worry about anything before, I guess, winter comes?
Well, most of the time, we don't build these with check valves. So when you turn them off, they self-drain. That's the color falls, the spouts, the spillways. the copper bowls all drain. They drain down into a basin that's literally 14 to 18 inches underground or more, because the basins can go deeper if you need more storage capacity. So typically, the pump is the only thing that you remove. And in many cases, south of the Canadian border, you don't need to do that either. In fact, in the Toronto area, you can leave your pump usually in the underground basin. But if you do want to remove it, it's a matter of literally unscrewing a union or a quick twist of a screwdriver, and the pump comes out in all one piece, and you can put it away in the garage till spring. That's the only winterizing you have to do with these.
Incredible. And just to verify the level of the water, I know you touched on that. I know this question comes up with a customer to a contractor. The level of water, does that need to be maintained at all, or is that if we get a rainfall, is that going to correct itself? And how does it work this if there is a rainfall, or if the water does need to be topped up?
So what we like to see, and this depends on the individual contractor, is the installation of an autofill. The autofill is a very small float switch. It's a mechanical switch. There's nothing electronic about it. There's nothing to go wrong. Doesn't need to be plugged in. It works rather like a toilet bowl float, in that the float hangs down if there's no water below it to push it upwards. As the water rises, the float rises and shuts off a very small valve that puts in about a gallon and a half a minute. This installs to the nearest sprinkler system is what we recommend, either on its own line if you have that luxury, or off the nearest line that goes on periodically. And if the float calls for water when that zone goes on, it fills up the system. These are relatively small systems in many cases, without the water showing. So this is a nice way of having the system, which might be buried under gravel, just keep itself topped off automatically. When it rains, we like to set the autofill so that we can accommodate rain before the autofill comes on. We also like to see some kind of overflow if water flowing out of the basin would be messy or in some way inconvenience the homeowner or the installation. So basically, between the autofill and an overflow, you're all set. Now, you don't have to have a sprinkler system. You can hook the overflow to any half-inch pipe or to garden hose. We give you fittings for everything. So homeowners can hook it right up to a Y fitting on their hose and just, keep it topped off while they're using the other side of the Y fitting for their watering or other needs. So it's very, very simple to set up. And the overflow is typically a luxury for most folks because they just let it overflow when it rains. It usually can't do any damage in a hardscape. But you have that opportunity to put in an overflow. There are provisions in all of our installations for ways to make these completely autonomous as far as water goes.
This is great stuff, Demi. And the last thing I have questions about in terms of installation would be the power supply. Would this work something similar to that of a outdoor landscape lighting installation? What would that power supply install kind of look like for a water feature?
Most of the time, you're talking about a simple GFI protected 15 amp circuit. This is the standard circuit you'd find outside. We want it GFI protected because we're talking about water, but you should know that many of our pumps, all of the Owaza pumps, are ground fault protected themselves by having a metal grounding plate built into the pump that goes directly to ground. So they're doubly ground protected, but you still put it in GFI. None of our pumps actually exceed that 15 amp rating, except for one huge 220 volt pump that actually draws a little more power. And that's for pretty massive installations, very high, very far away, or high pressure requirements. All of the other pumps are very, very economical to run. For what we've been talking about today, they don't draw 2 amps, the largest of them. So the 15 amp circuit is more than enough. And the second outlet will serve to plug in a small 12 volt transformer to power lighting. All of our systems can be illuminated. Many of them, like the color falls, come with internal illumination, both warm white and Infocolor or RGB, infinitely adaptable and programmable lighting systems. And all of those colors, all of those lights can be synchronized. You can run different colors on the three different zones of an Infocolor transformer and do red, white, and blue, or different colors for different celebrations, sports colors, that sort of thing, or link them to the rest of the landscape. So you have a lot of options there also, and they require basically that one 15 amp transformer, 15 amp circuit rather, to drive both the transformer and the pump.
Excellent stuff. And I like to tell people that just listening to an episode like this will provide them the knowledge to at least speak confidently to their customers to sell a client on a water feature. But if you have somebody come up to you, a contractor, a hardscaper, and ask you, how do you sell a client on a water feature? What would you say to them?
I try and convey visual images by describing what the water feature will look like. But I encourage all of my customers to go take a look at photographs and videos, both strict beauty shots and, of course, install videos that are available online. Now, for my customers, I have a Facebook page. I'm afraid I don't have my website up, which is a real oversight for me because it's pondman.com, which is a great name that I've never actually put in place. But the Facebook page shows them pictures of their applications in use. And then the videos are very, I think, informative. And most people, even if they just skim through, will be very comfortable after seeing not only the beauty images in the beginning and the end of the video, but the simple steps taken to make the video, the feature itself work. So, for example, for the project bundles, we've just finished a series of videos, install videos, where we literally film the whole thing in double speed so you can see every stone going to place in a hardscape. These project bundles add water to a variety of different hardscape applications. The ones we're talking about are into walls, our formal spillway project bundles. So you can see, the copper bowl sitting on top of the wall, and then exactly how to plumb it. And that's very reassuring to the customer. Not only do they get a feel for the aesthetics, but also how it's going to work and how it runs. A lot of people don't realize that all of our water features recirculate water. Just a quick funny aside, in Southern California, water features were declared illegal because it was assumed that you turned on the tap, ran water into this feature, and it would overflow into the landscape continuously. And of course, when the various California landscape associations corrected that misconception, water features were once again allowed because they are very conservative of water. Water feature uses less water in evaporation and splash, what have you, than lawn, period, in pretty much every application. So these are conservative as well.
That's incredible. And Demi, you've answered all my questions expertly. This was a great interview. Now, where would you direct our hardscapers, our audience, our community to go take a look in terms of they haven't installed a water feature before? What should they be looking at in terms of products that Atlantic Water Gardens has to offer?
I'm so glad you asked that. Actually, we have a number of resources for the first-time builder. I have written a simple guide to water features called Atlantic Water Gardens University that's on the web that takes folks through every facet of water gardening and water features. It's being revamped actually as we speak, and we're adding all sorts of stuff because we constantly add new opportunities. In this case, the hardscape opportunities have exploded in the years between the original publication. So we constantly update it, but we have a ton of stuff going in for hardscaping. I would then counsel them to take a look at the website and the products and take a special look at the installation videos because they can get a real feel after they've seen the galleries of what it takes to put these things together. And then basically we offer our services, and there are a number of people like me in the field whose numbers are on the website. Sean Bell in the Northeast, and Jim Chubb up in the Midwest, and Frayne McAtee in the Northwest. A number of people who are delighted to talk to you about specifying and setting up water features. So if you have any questions, there are resources. I'm one of them. My cell phone is on the web, and I get calls all the time.
Demi, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your day to join us here to add your value to our community. So on behalf of us, thank you so much.
It's been my great pleasure, Michael. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. Visit us at howtohardscape.com for more information on the subject. Let us know what you want to learn about in future episodes by just reaching out to us on our social channels. We are at howtohardscape everywhere, and contact at howtohardscape.com on our email. We'd love it if you subscribe to our podcast, left us a rating and review wherever you can. And I just want to say thank you to Jobber for sponsoring these past few episodes, as well as giving back to the community with their grant program. So go check them out at boostbyjobber.com and check out those grants. Once again, I'd love it to see somebody from our community walk away with one of those and to change their business with that. And if you already have applied, go check them out at getjobber.com, their award-winning software that they have there for home service businesses. And we look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.